Right, before I get into a video, if anybody wants a Commodore, this is up for sale, so just let me know. You can hear it running there. It's caused me no problem since I've had it. I just have to get rid of it. So if anybody's interested in a silver Commodore Ute, you can let me know in the comments and I'll get you to get in touch. There are two new tyres on the original rims here, and these ones are almost at their end, but these rims come with it as well. So if anybody's interested, it's not a bad little car. It drives quite well. There's nothing wrong with the motor. It's had a service. It's got two new tyres in the tray there, and the interior's reasonably good. It's not perfect, it's a pretty old car, but the interior's not too bad. So hit me up if you're interested. So most of you are aware that I took a Subaru Outback up the Cape and did the what's it called, the telegraph track, or parts of it. There were parts of it I couldn't do because the car was not high enough, but I managed to take a 2008 Subaru up the telegraph track all the way up to the tip of the Cape, and I had a little bit of a problem on the way back. It's a story we will get into today, and Jace has helped me to sort of get this car up and running. Now, I don't usually ask people for help, but this car needs rego. It's just past a roadworthy. It's had a few repairs done to it, and it's a replacement for the Outback that blew up on the way back down from the Cape. So I don't usually ask for help, but if you could help out to pay the rego on this, that would very, very much help me out. And then we'll get into today's video. Alright, come down to the dam. It's been raining a lot. So we had a big electrical storm that knocked the local Telstra radio tower, the mobile network tower and internet tower. Got hit by a lightning strike and boom! Blew the whole tower out of the ground and knocked it over. So we've got a whole new tower down the road there now. But we've been without internet and phone for, it was about a week, about 4 or 5 days without anything, because we were sitting on the back porch and we watched this massive lightning strike hit just over the hill, and we didn't realise it had actually hit the mobile network tower. So we're back. It's been very hot, got up to at least 38 degrees. It's been very, very hot over the dog days of summer, and those Doggy Star people celebrated their Government of the Day, so I hope you enjoyed your Government of the Day, flying your government flag everywhere because you're governed. We'll get into that a bit later, but we started with the car. Now, I took a trip all the way up the Cape. I'll pull some photos out as we go and we'll talk about this. And I took my opportunity to go from Cooktown all the way to the tip of the Cape because I knew that if I didn't take that opportunity, it would go missed and I wouldn't be able to do it into the future. So I took the Outback and I rally drove that thing all the way up the PDR and all the way up Telegraph track. I had to go in and out of the telegraph track all the way. But I got all the way up to the tip and I thoroughly enjoyed myself. It's just fantastic country up there. Now, the telegraph track has a problem, and that's all of you dumping your poo and your toilet paper and your nappies from all of your children everywhere. And I'm asking you to stop it. Stop it. Because it's disgusting. The whole way up the telegraph track was nappies and toilet paper. Because of all of you youngsters in your four-wheel drives dragging your little children around on your holidays, pooing all over what could be considered one of the last bastions of cool four-wheel driving in the country, and they'll take that away from you too if you just keep that up. So I had a fantastic time. I got all the way to the top and I was hankering for a coffee. No one serves coffee anywhere on the tip. So I drove around looking for a coffee. And Punson's Bay, pretty good coffee. But I went to the resort because I'd been everywhere for a coffee. And most of these places are shut unless it's evening time. So they do dinner and drinks and bar. They don't really do breakfast or lunch. So I went into the resort, I sat down, I bought a coffee, I enjoyed some breakfast. And while I was sitting there, a bishop walked in and sat down at a table, and he had the cloth on and white collar and everything. You know, a speaker next to him. He was preparing to go and do something. So I asked him who he was, and it turned out to be the Anglican Church. And they invited me over to the Anglican Church while I was there. And when I got there, it was the Sabbai people, a whole different culture of people that have come down from an island that went underwater during the conflict of World War II, and they were offered to settle in the Cape, which they did. And I went to this Captain Cook Memorial Church where not one white person was in attendance. They were all Islander, Sabbai people. And from that experience, I spent the day, a couple of hours there, had lunch, talked to all the ladies, got to know what their culture was like and what their lifestyle was like on the tip of the Cape. And the bishop invited me over to Thursday Island. And that's how I eventually got on a boat the next morning. I had some donation money sitting there, so I used it to go to Thursday Island. Not a cheap experience, but well worth the memory, because it's a battle station island which has got massive gun turrets on the top of the hill and a historical precinct in that it has a history that goes back quite a long time. Long before a Commonwealth was incepted. And this church on Thursday Island sits there in a state of needing some repair. And I was told about this bell that sits in the back of the church there. Now, this bell has been sitting there for a number of years because they can't afford to put it up in a bell tower, and that's where we took on this project. We've already raised over $2,000 for, to help them put up a bell tower in this historical precinct and put some money towards refurbishing the precinct, the church and the grounds around the church. So I come home, I get ready to leave Cooktown, and I'm dragging a trailer out of Cooktown and the outback blows up. And I'm stuck in Ingham, of all places, trying to get further south towards Brisbane. And I had no choice but to buy the Commodore, because the outback, I stripped the primary clutch and the gearbox and there was no going backwards or forwards. The fastest the car would go was 15 kilometres an hour down the highway in drive. So I had completely stripped the primary clutch and the gearbox and it was going nowhere. And the cost to repair was more than half the worth of the car. So it kind of became pointless, and with the help of Rick, a guy I met up in Ingham, allowed me to stay downstairs in his home there while I swapped over these two vehicles, and thanks to Rick was able to purchase this car in a hurry to be able to keep moving. So now we've replaced the Outback some 8-9 months later, and we have this Commodore, which is nothing wrong with it. It's still registered, so if anybody's interested, which helped me finish my trip after I obviously destroyed the clutch, or the gearbox automatic, on the Telegraph and PDR. And it wasn't capable of towing the weight that I had on the back of the car all the way down the highway from Cooktown down to Brisbane. So it got kind of stuck. But during that adventure, a coffee led to a trip to Thursday Island, and sitting down with, I'm not sure if he is a bishop, but the clergy of the church, all the way over to Thursday Island to be shown how to manage my walking around Thursday Island. You've got 5 hours to get off that ferry and back onto that ferry. So you've got a limited window to try and get as much done as possible while you're on the island. And the way I went about it was basically explained to me by the clergy of the church. I should go to the coffee shop where I met some real prince, young boys of these islander peoples, who showed the tourists their dance and song. But they were the young boys of the actual warriors that were the sons of the men that stood next to your Anzac. Now, this is the important part here that I'd like to point out, is that with the church, right, and the Sabai people and Thursday Island, we look at a whole series of events that happened during World War I, World War II. And if we look at the War Memorial in Thursday Island, there is a soldier wearing a headdress and feathers and holding a bow and arrow, whereas on the other side of the War Memorial is the typical Anzac soldier with his 2 feet together holding his rifle. So when we see this correlation of our different people standing alongside your Anzac, that's 2 different cultures going off to the same battle, the same war, demonstrating an allegiance and alliance between 2 different peoples, 2 different peoples who then became part of the Cape, part of Thursday Island, and the islands around it all became part of Australia. If you go up to Thursday Island, it is considered to be managed by the state of Queensland. So we can see these different cultures in who we are. We can see that these people of Thursday Island and the Sabai on the tip of the Cape are not the Commonwealth of Australia per se, but became, through their own cultural ties, in an allegiance or an alliance in battle that allowed us as a people to stand united against some evil communist force that you might know by their rainbows that miss the indigo colour. A 6-coloured flag is not a rainbow, so you shall know them by their lack of count. 6 is not 7. But we look at Thursday Island as helping out the Anglican Church here to put a bell tower up, because they are part of the same people that we are, even though we are two separate peoples. Two separate peoples, because they are their own islander tribe as well. They have their own historical record in that respect as well, as do we. So this demonstrates that two different peoples stood united together, which will help you to understand all this race baiting that is done by the politicians. I mean, who was the last one to go race baiting? They all do, don't they? And we can see that division by race is something that they want to grey us out with, so that none of us have that history in our minds. We're all grey and numb to it and just soldiers in their mercantile war, their money war, the money lender in the temple. The money lender in the temple that everyone tried to stop in World War II, not realising they got played by something that abdicated the throne in 1936. In 1936. So as we come into the new year, I don't really want to do politics. And there's a limited ability for me to show you things, because what I have to show you shouldn't really go on the internet. So if people want to learn, then the other side of this coin is that I've been trying to open up a cafe, and I just put it on hold for 3 years. So we have a coffee machine and oven and everything to run a small cafe gallery. And it might be in people's best interests to come and speak and sit down. So if you would like to do that, then your donations would help put me in that building, register that car, do some things that I can't afford to do without your help, so that we can turn them into their own businesses. But give me a space to be able to sit down with you and show you things one-to-one or one to a small group, because I can't see any other way for you to learn what that scripture says, not only about you and your homeland, but about God and the sky and the land, the heavens and the earth. And how do we put it? The Bible says that Moses came down from the Temple Mount with the patterns of God. And those patterns are defined in the temple itself. Those patterns are defined in the works of God that you would then come down from your pyramid to lay out on the ground. So we can go into some things in a little bit more depth one-on-one. But to sit here on the internet trying to get you to see who you are as a country has become a difficult prospect. We've forgotten who we are as people, and that's part of the reason why we look at the Anglican Church and this bell tower project. It's quite warm today. We need to see that all these different tribes and towns became united in something together. And you all need to see that your enemy came here with money and undermined your land and put a monopoly board down and made you run the monopoly board instead of your actual town. The moneylender is in your town. The moneylender is in your pocket. The moneylender is in the state. And the only way for you to be free is to remove the moneylender. Stop using its credit. Stop using its reserve bank notes and start building something for yourselves. To build a kingdom. To build what a people would need. Defense. To defend. Right? This comes in many different flavors, and charity is that first step. So as we look at helping with the bell tower, we also look at the legal aspects of this, and I'll be opening up another account soon just for legal donations so that we can pass donations on to certain people that have been doing some work for you. That way is the only way that this can end up before a court, is being prepared to walk into that courtroom. And that's not cheap. That involves using the moneylender's money to pay the moneylender to use our courts. There are certain laws in relation to the freedom of the court, and they generally relate to the one accused of a crime shouldn't be required to pay fees to prove his innocence. But when it comes to civil or criminal claims, if they're criminal, we can expect the court to waive the fees because we're talking about politicians, public servants, the police, the military, public service. So we can see there's quite a few things that we're looking at, but these things only grow with the energy in all of you. And I think this bell tower is something that might grow that energy in all of you to fracture you from the humdrum of trying to rescue yourselves from the moneylender instead of helping each other to stand up. Now, I'd like to thank Jason. He's helped me quite a lot so that I don't fall through the cracks, so that I can continue to speak up and help. I'm asking you for your help this time, just with some registration and some bills that need to be paid. Otherwise, I'm on my ass, right? And then how can anybody help when they're put in that position? They can't. And then the other side of the coin, I keep seeing it. You want to keep law-tarding. You're the best lawyers ever. You're going to win all your court cases. And by the time you've finished, everything that was important was forgotten about because you were arguing and fighting in a courtroom all the time. And that doesn't lead to you being a society, a people, united in some sort of heart value to want to defend this soil from the evils that manipulate it. We can see that since Trump's been elected. Hi, Pauline. Is Trump your new lapdog buddy boy now? You jumped on that bandwagon, lickety-split, because of the Zionists behind it. Isn't that right, Pauline? With the old scarf in the Parliament trick. The old scarf in the Parliament trick. As soon as they jumped, you had to jump. How high, you said? They said 18 inches. You said, I'll do 19. We have to look at what is value. Is that RBA note based on credit, based on debt value? Of course it's not. It's based on debt, which then comes out of the GDP of your country, which then comes out of all of you. Like blood from a stone. Squeeze! Squeeze! I can't get any more out of this one, Your Honour. Squeeze! Oh, there we go. There's another penny. That's what you're being treated like all around the country. That's what they're doing to you all around the country. And the only way that's going to change is if you stop hiding behind your fences and become neighbours again. And start doing something about defence and start looking at all these other cultures in your country. Oh, move over into the shade. So, unless you start changing the mentality here, because you're not going to change you as a people constantly fighting in those courtrooms, right? You're not going to be united with any strength if all you do is let these people individually go to court and constantly keep fighting the man, the system. How are you a defence yourself? How are you able to stand up to your council as a town and say, no, we don't want these investors in our town. We don't want their concrete. We don't want their 10-story buildings. We don't want this constant external investment at the expense of everything that's nice in our town. We don't want it. We want you to fix the town. We don't want you to keep investing in it. We don't want the private investor that then owns everything while everyone else rents. We don't want that. So how do you get any power if you will not become our people? How do you have people speak and act on your behalf if you are individuals? Are you a country? Are you the sons of your ancestors? Are you the sons of your forefathers? Are you the legal inheritors of the Constitution? Or have you let a moneylender trick you into believing that they own the Constitution and you're merely a pauper on your own land? This is very evident by the way the police treat you. It's very evident by the way the state collects money from all of you, right? This is an act of human trafficking. We've gone over it many times before. No one wants to address it. You all want to fight in court. You all want to research the law. You all want to become the barrister. Well, why don't you go and do the bar and become a real barrister? I don't want to do it because fuck that for a job. Totally. Right? I don't want to turn out like those people. But these are the claims that you're making, which you're required to actually go and stand up for. I'll go and stand up for it. I just don't want to do it for a job. Right? So we get to this point where, are you a people? Are you united in anything? Are you supporting each other instead of all of the corporate interests that screw you? Right? You just want to keep quiet and sit on your hands and do nothing and not gather the people while you pretend to be the best on social media. Oh, I did the best in the court today, but I totally forgot about my neighbourhood. I did the best in the court today, but I totally forgot about bringing people up in my town so that we don't have to deal with the local council, the local police, the people that harm and impact you on a daily basis by constantly revenue raising off you. Squeeze! Yep, got another penny out of him, Your Honour. Squeeze! Yep, that family's got no more, Your Honour. Squeeze! That town is almost dry, Your Honour. Can we move in with the concrete now? Of course you can. No one can afford anything anymore. Send in the investors, destroy all their family homes and build concrete monstrosity blocks of units in their place and then fill them with immigration. Now you no longer are your town, because that's what the federal government, the state government and the so-called local government did to you. And while you sat on your hands, going to work every day, paying all your slave dues, you did what you were told every day. You never questioned it. And then your rego went up $100, $200, $400, and now it's $1,000 a year. $1,000 a year just to use your own roads, your own land, because you will not wake up to the fact that they enslave you. You are their slaves. You're dependent on that reserve bank. You're dependent on all of these things. You never see another way out. You never look. And then you wonder why that moneylender and its rates fucked you. Fucked you. And you couldn't work that out. So what I'm asking all of you right now is to start looking at the community that you all are. Stop arguing on Facebook with the cops. I keep saying it over and over and over again. Stop letting them bait you. Stop following their terrible advice and start looking at who you are as a people. Because if you don't, there is no way forward. You won't act like a town. So when it comes to relying on something your town provided, which you no longer provide, most towns don't have fruit markets anymore because the government controls the food. You can't grow it and sell it because the government controls the food. And you haven't looked at all of this in your town. So when it comes down to it, and you go to defend something, you'll all starve in the morning, won't you? Because none of it clicks. The money lender is Coles. The money lender is Woolworths. Your country's gone. You rely on imports. You rely on corporations running all of your family businesses. You rely on foreign investors to keep you afloat. Because this government keeps squeezing and squeezing and squeezing the vice. Drip. I got another one from the farmer, Your Honour. Drip. I got another one from the agricultural industry, Your Honour. I almost bankrupted him out of his farm, Your Honour. Then the government comes in over your inheritance and takes it all from your children. Takes it all from your children. They never consider any of this. So I want you to look. Why would we raise a bell? Why would we ring a bell? Why would we help? Why would we look at a different culture of people in the same faith? Why would we look at a different culture of people in the same commonwealth, in the same unity to go and defend? And I'm asking all of you, where is that defence today? So, this community that isn't really needs to be addressed, doesn't it? Because everyone's scrambling with their opinions and believing that politicians with self-interests are going to help you in your opinions when none of that matters. None of it matters. Do you think politicians run your life? Or are they your public servants obligated to manage portfolios that they're given to manage? Do you think they're going to manage anything outside of said portfolio? No. So all of you need to put your differences aside and start to realise that this is a country, not a system. You're not trying to beat the system. You're trying to make the people that committed all of those war crimes accountable. And to do that might mean starting to realise it's not about fighting a fine. That's what the police want you to do all the time. Get out of fines crap. Because that keeps your mind in a convoluted trap, instead of realizing that the issuing of the fine is actually technically human trafficking via a trafficking notice where the state makes money off you, squeezing the blood out of that stone, right? Your bloodlines. Because some foreign power came into your land to drive your economy and eventually you as a part of that economy. And because you're not a community of united people who can put their differences aside to defend their homeland, all of this continues because you can't be united. You can't put your differences aside. You can't put your opinions in the cupboard where they belong. No one wants to hear your opinions, especially at the end game where you're about to lose it all. Squeeze, right? So at some point, when do you realize you're a country that needs to be countrymen, that need to rely on each other instead of relying on the state, so you can stand up in that united in a federal commonwealth capacity and slap your public servants sideways with the criminal code for breaking all of those laws that they're obligated to, But none of you can get together to be that united people, right, in defense of what they are. No, instead, you've got to go and argue with each other. Oh, you don't know. I know more than you. I'm the best in the courtroom. Are you? Or are you just another one after many, many, many before you that you refuse to listen to? Because you're better than. Forget that fact that someone else went through exactly what you're going through right now. Forget that. You need to be the best. So you've got to study all that law. All of that law. And then you realize you don't know it because you don't know who you are in your homeland while they bring in immigrants because divide and conquer, right? Divide and conquer. Have you all arguing with each other over your law-tardy best or better thans so that you never ever unite to be a country properly. You'll fly the government of the day flag and forget your forefathers' flag. So all this better than has stopped you from being the country you are because you all thought you were better than in a courtroom. So when we talk about a community, I don't want to be part of a community of law-tarding. It's dumb. It's a waste of time. It doesn't help the town be a town of all the multiple facets that a town is. It turns all of you into lawyers that can't keep your town, that can't keep your town. How many concrete buildings do they have to put in your suburbs before you realise private investors own your town, not you? You're on their monopoly board. Do not pass go. Go straight to jail. You need to be slapped, little child. Nanny State thinks that you're a bad child. Right? Red flag, red flag, red flag. The Tourette's of the state, remember? The Tourette's of the state. Red flag, red flag, red flag. Bad child. You need to be reprimanded by the state. Your public servants need to reprimand you because you can't master them. Because you can't master them. Because you can't master them. It's that simple. Your inability to do anything as a people because you wholeheartedly believe you have to step through every hoop your public servants put down in front of you instead of standing united in a federal commonwealth. My God. And we go round and round and round and round and round and round and round in circles like it's Groundhog Day. I want to know more. Feed my zombie brain more. I'll go picking all the other zombies' brains. Not enough. Need to attack the zombies. You became that instead of graceful country. Instead of the people that would have said, get off my lawn, ScoMo. Get off my lawn. No, welcome in. Can you bring your mercantile agents with you to run my home for me? Please come onto my lawn, ScoMo. Please help yourself. Everything in the cupboard is yours, ScoMo, because I owe you for it. I used all of your credit. And at some point, the credit machine's going to come collecting. The credit machine's going to come collecting. Think about what Trump just did on an international stage and look at your politicians lapping up his ass like a... Right? Look at Pauline. Didn't take 1 hour for her to come out with something. All of Trump's agenda is Pauline's agenda. And Trump's agenda is the IRS and removing civil rights and returning the country out of usufruct and collecting all the debt that you still haven't wrapped your head around. On an international stage, those Germans went through some sort of debt camp. Your work will set you free, it said across the top of the gate. The tax camp, right? Don't talk about the tax camp. Not allowed to talk about the 6 million debtors that they needed to round up. You owe us money. Pay up. Or we'll squeeze it from your family. I got the last of his land, sir. He handed it over. He could no longer manage it. And this is the unfortunate reality that you all let yourselves become. And I am at this point where I tried for 20 years to wake you up to what they've done. And it just seems to me you will not wake up. You're woke. You're stuck in woke mode. You will not realise what a rainbow person is. You will not realise what the Queen did. You will not realise what administration means. You will not understand what that reserve currency does. You don't want to look at a different way. You want to fight them in their courts all the time when they have the upper hand over all of it because you're not united in a federal commonwealth at which the law afforded you. The law afforded you to be a people, and you can't. You just can't do it. So don't know what to say anymore. You need to address the community that you are. You need to look at what you are as a group of people, a group of groups, because you've all got individual leaders of all these groups that don't know what they're doing, right? They're leading you nowhere for I don't know what purpose. See, so I just don't think you can be the people. I just think it's not in you anymore. I just think that you believe in the government of the day, which is going to change to Liberal Labor, Liberal Labor, Liberal Labor in a two-party headed snake of the same body. You're being played by these career politicians like Pauline Hanson, like Dutton, like your Prime Minister. These people don't represent you. They treat you like the wards of state that are going to put the silver spoon on their table. Without you being squeezed, without you paying all the fines, without you paying all the council shit, without you doing all of the running around for them, they don't get to live a silver spoon life like Pauline Hanson's made for herself after she came out of jail. Most of you would go to jail and come out and fall further into the gutter. But you look at these people, career politicians have no interest in you. You're the fodder that puts the silver spoon on their table. You're the fodder that's going to pay a public servant a pension. You're going to pay your servant a pension for life. You don't get it at all. I'm just bewildered how you keep playing their game all day, all night, all day, all night, thinking that you're going to change their game when their game is ripping you off and making sure that you're the fodder that puts the silver spoon on their table. You haven't worked this out yet. You just can't fathom this. While they squeeze you and squeeze you and squeeze you and squeeze you and squeeze you until there is nothing left. Then they're all using borrowed money and bringing in immigrants to divide you further as a country. You think your own government would undermine your very land? Or do you think a foreign administering government would do that? Why don't you ask Pauline who she works for? Why don't you demand from Pauline and Malcolm Roberts exact specific answers as to why they don't use the Great Seal of the Commonwealth of Australia, and ask them what this Australia they created is? Why don't you start doing something? Are you incapable of uniting? Are you incapable of making demands? Are you incapable of upholding your demands? Are you incapable of growing a force to flex your demands? Are you incapable of being a people? You're just going to let your public servants run your lives into the ground until you can't afford to do anything anymore? Your public servants threatened you with the words, "You'll own nothing and you'll enjoy it." Your public servants are in cahoots going against Section 44 of the Constitution with the World Health Organization, with the World Economic Forum. When do you realise that the Constitution told them not to fly a scarf of a foreign power, showing their allegiance and obedience to that power in the Senate, yet everyone sits on their hands doing nothing? Nothing. Does that demonstrate to you that it's not your government? Because your government would have called that treason. Your government would have called that treason for showing an obedience or an allegiance to a power foreign to the Constitution as a senator, and you lot can't fathom this. I can talk till the cows come home. None of this changes until you address what you are as a people, what you are as a kingdom, what you are as the sons of your forefathers that forged that kingdom for you. You can keep playing all of this mock each other. I don't care. I've shown you something you want to abandon. Abandon it. Abandon it. Right? You'll figure it out. You'll figure out you've lost the most important thing in your entire world. An anchor to your homeland. While you boarded a citizenship and flew the flag of the government of the day, you forgot where you came from. You forgot where you came from to know who they are. So, we look at what makes a country. What makes them your public servants? Would it be the fact that a foreign investor is taking over from you, who are no longer the shareholder of your own things? Do you rely on that foreigner's reserve bank instead of your own constitutional money? Section 115 of your very own constitution told you that all debts shall be payable in gold and silver, and that the state shall not coin money. But here we have all the states coining money and not accepting that money in your councils or the state. And if you want to address this Australia Act problem and the fact that the states abandoned your Commonwealth to go and join some bankers corporation called Australia, if you want to look at all of the things that happened to Gough Whitlam, you're going to have to do it as a people, a community. You're going to have to realise after all these years that you're chasing your fines and trying to get out of every little thing that the nanny state does to you is not you growing up from a child into the son to remove the nanny from your house. Remove the nanny from your house. The nanny's always going to remain if you keep squabbling like little children and thinking you're better than each other. Are you better than each other? I don't think so. I'm looking at a country that can hardly operate at the moment. I'm looking at a government under the thumb of something at the moment, doing the whim of that something, going against Section 44 of the Constitution, and your Prime Minister is directly involved in it. Your Governor General is directly involved in it, undermining you, undermining your Constitution, undermining your Commonwealth, because you can't be a people. You have to listen to a government. You have to argue with your politicians. You believe they're the ones that are going to fix your problems when they're your servants, and you failed to master them. You failed to master our country together as a people. You allowed someone else to run it for you your entire lives, believing that that was normal. Believing that that was normal for a foreign interest to run your country and your life, sending all your wealth offshore to battlefields like Ukraine, like Israel, that we have no interest in. But the government of the day that puts your sons on those battlefields has every interest in. It came onto your land to run its war, and you didn't recognize them doing that on your soil. You couldn't recognize it at all. You thought it was defending you, when it's the very cause and reason of all the debt, of all the fake money, of all the lie media, propaganda news that works on behalf of militaries, like the ABC, works on behalf of Federal Executive Council and the executive branches of government. It's the executive branch propaganda mouthpiece. And you haven't worked this out yet while you still entertain it. You still argue with it instead of becoming the son and growing up into the house that was sitting there waiting for all of you. Instead, you'll serve that monster and send your sons into foreign battlefields on behalf of foreign interests that your country has zero interest in. Zero interest in. When you start to realize that it's you as a community that becomes a country, you might be able to hold those people in your councils, your state governments, and your federal governments to account for all of the criminal offences that they've committed in the last 6 years. In the last 6 years. They thought they could push a people out of the way and poison them all for their own advantage. Their own advantage. And now they're starting to realise what they did was a very, very big mistake. Not only was it a mistake, it was a crime that you're watching them try and whitewash time and time and time again through royal commissions, through investigations, through Senate estimates reports, through anything they could get their hands on to excuse themselves from what they did to all of you. Our people managed and administered under the Hague and Geneva Conventions, in line with the United Nations, at which every politician in all of the state and federal parliaments are beholden to the rules of. So when you work this out and stand up as our people, you could become Iceland. You could jail these people for their crimes. You could actually do something that would see them face the consequences of their actions. But that's not going to happen until you start to recognise that your heroing, your mimicking and copying is all at a detriment to the very country that's being pointed out to you. The very country that's being pointed out to you. So it's time for you to think, what is that people? Who are they going to follow? God, king, country, or the government of the day and the government of the day's flag? Until you recognise the Stockholm syndrome that you're all in, that government of the day, the nanny, is going to remain in your house because as a people, as a country, you're incompetent, incapable, and are self-interested. So self-interested you're willing to give up that God and that foundation to what gave you a country. You're willing to give that up to play their politics, to sit in their parliaments, to argue with their politicians instead of walk into courtrooms and accuse these people of the very, very criminal offences that they've all been party to. It's called a conspiracy when they conspire. It's called being in cahoots with each other, right? In joint commission by their job. Just doing my job, well, that doesn't cut it. Just following orders doesn't cut it. But I told them what to do. Doesn't cut it. They had all of these rules and obligations on the table. And it's up to all of you to recognise now the only way to deal with that is to become the people your forefathers were, instead of being managed by a nanny state. So that brings us to the end of another video. I just wanted to bring you into the new year, and we want to move forward and not do all this law-tarding. Now, at the beginning of the video, I had a Commodore. If you're interested, it's cheap. Only won $3,000 for it. Just hit me up. It's registered. It's pretty roadworthy. The motor's good. The bodywork's good. It's a pretty good little car for the price. Or near offer. Make me an offer. And then if you can help me with my rego, that would be super, super appreciated, because that's the one thing that is difficult to manage. Now, outside of that, I don't want to lay out all of the groundwork of God out onto the table, because there are other people around the world that could use that data against certain things and cause trouble. We have a right of self-determination according to international law. That means the Hague, Geneva, United Nations system. We have this lawful right. But to teach people what it all is would open the door to some tribal factions in other countries using that information for their own gain. And that may not be of our benefit. So it would be dangerous to teach many of these things. So if you'd like to come and see me, you can organise that with me, and I'm going to ask you for donations when you turn up, because I'm not sitting there wasting my time over something so technical that most of you would be able to pick it up, I'm sure. It's not super difficult. It's a puzzle. It's a very, very complicated puzzle. That's all I can say. It's been written in a way that opens the door for you to found something on the ground called a city. So when you look at a Bible, you need to look at your city, because that's what the Bible is creating, a city. Cities of God. Go and watch that movie. That's a pretty interesting movie, Cities of God. And then you might remember that cartoon from the old days, Cities of Gold. Right? That was about going into Peru or the Incas and trying to find the elusive city of gold. Well, that could be your city. If you worked out that the Reserve Bank isn't that gold, that's borrowed time. Borrowed time that's going to pull your council under and make them an ICLEI-based corporate council working on behalf of foreign monetary powers that control the foreign investment in your town. Would you like another Bunnings, KFC mega complex built with all those concrete slabs? We can have it up in a weekend if you'd like it. Just give us the land. We'll invest in it with all our concrete. We'll make you pay for the concrete though. Don't forget that.